Now, I was planning on doing this at the same time for when the remake was being released. Now, in the meantime, the remake has been postponed indefinitely. So, I'm still going to do the video anyway.
Dune is a 1984 American epic science fiction film written and directed by David Lynch. The film is set in the distant future and it chronicles the conflict between noble families as they battle for control as the extremely harsh desert planet Arrakis, also known as Dune, the planet where the spice comes from, which is essential for space travel. When the film was released, it was actually classed as a box office bomb and it did not recover the budget it was spent to make the film. And it was also negatively reviewed by critics, criticising a hell of a lot of the film, including the screenwriting, the lack of faithfulness to the source material, pacing, direction, editing, you name it, it was criticised. But it did get some good points for visual effects, music and action sequences as well. So today I'm going to do what I do best and talk about 10 things that are wrong with Dune. Number 10. Third time lucky.
Now, there's actually been 3 different attempts to make this film. Now, the first one was some Russian guy who I cannot, for the life of me, pronounce his name. So I'm not going to try. But as much as he tried, he could never get it visually the way he wanted it to be. So he cancelled it. Then Dino Laurentiis came aboard, and he's the person ultimately who has produced this version, but he wanted Ridley Scott, and Ridley Scott couldn't get his head around it. And eventually Ridley Scott left this project and went on to do Alien. But so then we got David Lynch, and David Lynch has done a brilliant job. But when a film has 3 different attempts to make it, it doesn't look good in the eyes of promotional materials or anything like that. But the film was okay, wasn't it?
Number 9. The Wielding Way.
One of the things that was changed drastically from the book to the film was the lack of martial arts. The book is full of martial arts and it's called The Wielding Way. But they replaced that with those modules that just amplifies your voice to blow stuff up. I would have loved to have seen a martial arts film. That's one thing I'm hoping that the remake's got right, is the lack of or the inclusion of these martial arts. Something the original film actually was missing.
Number 8. Film length.
Yeah, funnily enough, the version you see at the cinema isn't actually the version that was originally made. The original version was 4 hours long. Can you imagine being in a cinema for 4 hours? That would have taken ages. But still, the studios weren't happy. The director was, but the studio wasn't. So they cut it down to the more normal 2.5 hours. Yet, it didn't end there. Now, when this film's being broadcast on TV, they've actually put a different 3-hour version. A version David Lynch does not like and has his name removed. You can also get that version on DVD and Blu-ray, but when a film is cut so much, it doesn't look good on the film itself. We haven't even started on the actual film yet.
Number 7. Throne Guy.
Right, so quite near the beginning of the film, they're showing like the Imperial Palace, or whatever you want. You've got full of the Emperors, his aides, everybody important. And in the centre of this room, where the Emperor sits, is obviously the throne. What, cool? No. There's a guy that looks like he's homeless, sat leaning against the actual throne itself, which makes you wonder why. I mean, could you imagine Boris Johnson leaning against the throne room when the Queen sat in it? Although that would be a funny image to have in your head. But yeah, why was this guy just sat leaning against the throne? Where was the Emperor's security? You should have dragged him off.
Number 6. Guild costumes.
So quite near the beginning of the film as well, the guild navigators all come along and they're all dressed in these quite cool, goth-looking, funky costumes, which I would never wear in a million years. Now let me explain why. These costumes were actually made out of body bags. And you think that's worse? These are actually used body bags. So yes, their costumes actually had real dead people from the 1920s inside them. And that's how they made these costumes. So how do the the directors and all these people get away with talking these people into wearing these costumes that actually originally had dead people inside them. They didn't tell them. Yeah, you couldn't have paid me £1 million to actually wear them costumes once I found that out.
Number 5. Backstory.
So one of the major backstories of this film is the ongoing feud between the Baron and the Duke. However, it doesn't really explain that much about why. In fact, watching this film, the biggest thing I actually got was all the Baron wants is the Duke's ring. That was it. I'm pretty sure there was more to it, and I'm sure in the books it would have explained so much more. But in the film, the motivation was the Baron wants the Duke's ring. End of.
Number 4. Security.
House Atreides have finally taken over the planet Dune. And they know that the Harkonnens have actually left loads of booby traps and stuff to stop everything. So you'd think security would be top notch. Nope. No, not so ever. Security was a joke. How many times were people sabotaging? How many times were people being killed? How many attempts on people's lives were happening? Security was a complete and utter joke. You know full well that the Baron and his troops would have left stuff there or try and kill you, and yet you put lax security everywhere. I wouldn't feel safe, would you?
Number 3. Extra bodyguard.
So as Paul progresses and he turns into Muad'Dib, the prophecy, the prophet, whatever you want to call him, he ends up getting 15 personal guards. These are his loyal best troops. They are sworn to protect him. Now, a bit later on in the film, when he carries on to try and drink the story of life, his troops are around him. Yet there's 16. Where did the extra one come from? Could someone not count? Hell, you probably paid an extra more money that you didn't actually need to. Granted, extras don't cost as much, but still, every penny counts when making a film.
Number 2. Final fight.
So as we're approaching the end of the film, we're given a fight between Paul Atreides and the Baron's nephew. And you're going to look like it's going to be a brilliant fight, especially as they've built the nephew up to be, you know, this really good fighter all the way through this film. So I'm expecting a really good hand-to-hand combat here. No, it was a bit anticlimactic. It was a bit, I don't know, dull and boring, really. This is something I'm hoping that the remake gets. I would want to see a brilliant, you know, like Neo and Smith in The Matrix. The final fight was fantastic. Something like that in the remake. But in this film, it was just dull and boring.
Number 1. Destroying Dune.
So the end of the book's quite different to what we actually see on the film. In the end of the book, it's Paul's now the prophet, and that's it. He's going to take over. End of. He's in charge of the universe. In the film, he just shows his power by making it rain on Arrakis. Except now you have destroyed the planet. Because let's face it, a desert planet where it starts raining would actually be destroyed. Its ecosystem would not survive. And not mention, this is the only place you can get the spice that makes people travel through space. It's actually worm poop, let's face it. But these worms would not be able to survive now. They would die. Keep it to the book. Don't kill everyone on the planet.
Final thoughts.
So what do I really think of this film? Well, ultimately, I do enjoy this film. It's one of the films when I was a kid that got me into sci-fi. Its main draw was its actual music done by Toto. You know, the people who did the Africa song, great soundtrack, it was brilliant. Now, as an adult, when I'm actually watching it, I do understand its motives, I do understand its themes a lot more than what I was a kid. But as my excitement as an adult from what I had as a kid was gone. And I don't quite understand why. It's not as good as an adult when I was an adult than when I was a child. And I can't explain it why. I mean, the casting was actually okay. I've never actually read the books though. And I have been told on quite a few occasions it's very drastically different from the book, and I have incorporated some of those into this video. But yeah, I don't know. The child me is saying, yes, it's a great film. And the adult me is saying, no, it's not. Now, for its time, the special effects were actually pretty good. And to be fair, they hold up quite well. I mean, the worms look scary as hell, even in 2020. Let's hope that the remake keeps the scariness of those worms. I mean, it does look a beautiful film. The costumes are brilliant, bar using body bags from the 1920s. But still, I don't know, there's just this niggly thing about this film as an adult that just puts me off a little tiny bit. But that's my opinion. But what do I rank this film? Because it is still a good sci-fi film, I'm still going to be quite generous and nice to it. Yeah, 7. 7 out of 10 berries is what I'm going to rank it. But as I said, that's my opinion, that's my thoughts. What do you think? Leave them in the comments below and let me know. And next week, we're going to start our Christmas period. We're going to have 4 Christmas films back to back throughout December. No clues to which one I'm doing, so just find out next week, and I'll see you then next Sunday. Take care. Bye-bye.